Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen a lot of risers and fallers in terms of average draft position in fantasy football drafts. We're going to go over the top 5 of those guys that have happened in the top 10 rounds. So players with an ADP higher than 120 or at 120 and above, players that have moved into that range over that time frame, and see how much they've moved. We're also going to take a quick look at the end of 5 players who have fallen, and I got a special promo for you guys with a free trial to a brand new site. Thank y'all for being here, and let's go.
He's a legend.
I'm going to order these in terms of ADP, right? So their current ADP, we're going to go top to bottom, not in terms of who's moved the most. And right now, the highest drafted, biggest mover of the top 5 biggest movers in terms of ADP on Underdog Fantasy the last 2 weeks has been Michael Thomas. He's back. Maybe. I gave my thoughts on what Michael Thomas was earlier. I think it was on like micro content. So go check out smizzle.tv/links. You can find all of my different, all the links to my sites, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. If you wanted all those quick micro content takes. Nobody has time for long form videos anymore. Everybody wants the quick takes. It's also here on YouTube as a short. His ADP right now is 58.7. It's up 14.7 spots in the last 2 weeks. So like basically a little more than 1 spot per day. I don't think that we're going to see a return to the Michael Thomas that we saw before he missed the last 2 years with the longest ankle injury in the history of mankind. However, I do think he is the most talented wide receiver on the Saints squad. All apologies to the rookie Olave, who has a little more juice than Michael Thomas now in terms of downfield ability and stretching defenses and everything out. He might be the guy that everybody wants to draft, but like Michael Thomas, I believe, is going to lead this team in terms of market share of targets. The problem, like I said, is I don't know how much they're going to throw the ball. So like a really, really, really pass-happy team is going to throw it 650 to 700 times over the course of the season. I could see this Saints team with Jameis not throwing it more than 600 times. So while he still may be a guy who can command 25 to 30, I don't think he's going to be a 30+ percentage of the market share sort of guy anymore. But if he is that 25+% market share, that's still extremely good. The problem is 25% of 500, it's 125 targets. It's not 160. It's not 180. You're not going to get the value that you got from him when he was a first rounder, but based on the other players that are being drafted around him, you'd kind of take it. I do think Olave could end the season as the number 1 guy, but as long as Michael Thomas is healthy and as long as Jameis Winston is throwing the ball, and assuming that they are behind in some games, and they're not going to be behind in week 1 against Atlanta, and they do play them twice this year, this is going to be a grinded out and defense sort of team. So take that as it is. His price has definitely gone up. If you were an early drafter, you were getting him when he was in the mid 70s, possibly down as far as like the 80s to mid 80s at the worst point this summer. So if you got that value, great for you. That value is now gone. He is now being drafted kind of at where I think like there's very little room for profit at his current ADP, but it's not like you're drafting him ahead of his ceiling. You're kind of getting him at cost at this point. So like if you want to keep clicking Michael Thomas, I'm fine with it. Somewhere around like the 5-6 turn. Next on the list is Brandon Aiyuk. I think that he has a possibility to be a big arrow up player. We've been saying this all summer back when his ADP was in the 85 to 95 range. It's currently at 74.4. In the last 2 weeks, it's up about 13.9 spots rise for him. Last year, he had like a 3rd round ADP, third round ADP for Brandon Aiyuk, and I was advocating to take Deebo Samuel in like the 6th round last year, and I caught a lot of flack for it. And this year, they've massively flip-flopped, where Deebo Samuel now has a 2nd round ADP, and Brandon Aiyuk has been going in like rounds 7 through 9 all summer. Now he's up to 74.4, so right there, kind of around the cusp, just after the 6-7 turn. I think he's the one that has more upside. I mean, if you factor in the fact that he spent the first month and a half of the season in 2021 in the coach's doghouse, was not getting any run, not getting any love, no targets, no nothing, I could see a massive uptick in terms of his target percentage this year, but the same issue exists with Michael Thomas. One, this was not a pass-heavy offense last year, okay? This was a run first, defense oriented, neutral game script. They're going to run the ball. They turned Deebo Samuel into a running back to the point where Deebo had to renegotiate his contract to get more value if they use him that way, because obviously there's more career risk if they use him that way. And the incentives that they gave him to pay him extra if he gets over X, Y, or Z carries in a season or yards rushing in a season, there's no disincentive for the team to not use him there. It's not like if they use him there a lot, they're going to pay him like 10 million extra dollars. It's like $1.5 million. Of course they're going to keep using him as a running back in this system. And you have a more run-heavy young quarterback in his first season, which to me means we're going to see even less pass attempts this season than we saw last season out of the San Francisco offense. Now, the pass attempts that could happen, one, he's going to be a better downfield threat than Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of efficiency. In my opinion, I could be very wrong. He has not been a very accurate quarterback. Eventually, I think he's going to take a leap in that aspect as time goes on. Brandon Aiyuk is going to be the one that gets targeted downfield more than Deebo Samuel, as Deebo Samuel is going to be utilized more as a running back, and in those situations, they're going to use him as bait and go downfield to Aiyuk more. This is an offense that's built on get the ball to the receivers and let them do their work. All of Aiyuk, Samuel, and George Kittle all are some of the best players in the league in terms of yards after first contact, yards after the catch. Just get the ball in his hands and let him go. If you look at his game log from last season, right? I mentioned how the first 5 weeks, like 0 targets, 2 targets, 6, 3, 4, 1 in week 7. Like, it's gross, right? Then 7, 8, 4, 7, 6, 6. Like, I think this is more what we're going to see out of Brandon Aiyuk this season for the entirety of this season. But it might only result in like 100 to 110 targets. Though, I think that you're going to get downfield shots from Trey Lance. I think you're going to get the put the ball in his hands on wide receiver screens and short little routes that are under 10 yards, and then let him go to work at what his best skill set is. He has been one of my favorite players to click from the 75 to 95 range all summer, and his ADP is finally catching up. I mentioned that we have a free trial offer for you, so right down below in the pinned comment, go click like on the pinned comment, if you will, and if you're still watching this video, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and leave me a reply with who you're still willing to draft at ADP. But if you have not gone over to rotowire.com, definitely do so. Smizzle.tv/rotowire will get you a 2-day, that's 48 hours, free trial, all access to everything that they have on the site. If you're playing daily fantasy baseball this summer, you can use their projections, their builders, all of their things. Your sports betting, they have plenty of content in that aspect. If you wanted to print out all of their draft kit stuff, you have access to all of it. Plenty of stuff here. Free 2-day trial, absolutely free. I can't beat free, guys, from the great people over at RotoWire. You can use their ADP data. If you wanted to kind of double check me, they have it for Fantrax, ESPN, MFL, NFFBC, wherever you're playing. They have it by position, half PPR, standard, full PPR, whatever you want. They've got it. So go check out the great stuff over at rotowire.com. Smizzle.tv/rotowire gets you that 2-day free trial. Jalen Tolbert has moved a lot. 17.9 spots in ADP the last 2 weeks. An ADP right now of 114th with this kind of correlates directly with the James Washington injury. When James Washington went down, it was like, well, you either believe that James Washington in the 17th, 18th round was going to get plays because he's a veteran professional wide receiver that you can trust to know that an offense and run routes and do his job, right? And then Jalen Tolbert was the rookie who may or may not be more talented than Washington, and they might split snaps or go with the hot hand or whoever's going to do it, or whether you like the guys that are already on the roster returning. There's a lot of vacated targets on that Cowboys team between Amari Cooper. Dalton Schultz and CeeDee Lamb are basically the only 2 guys that are returning that were heavy in that pass game from last year. Also, we have the news that Michael Gallup, who some assumed might be ready for opening day, is not. So now there's 2 more guys that aren't there, which means Jalen Tolbert is probably going to start and play 80 to 85+% of the snaps, opposite of CeeDee Lamb, which is valuable. You cannot score fantasy points if you are holding your helmet on the sideline. So the rookie is going to be forced into action early in the season in a very high-scoring, potent offense led by Dak Prescott. No matter what y'all think of Dak Prescott, he's a good quarterback for fantasy, and the players around him definitely eat. So Jalen Tolbert moving up a lot, still like him at 114. I think he's going to end draft season around 95. So I think he's still a value and has room to move over the next 3.5 weeks before we get first week kickoff. So if you're drafting a little bit later, there's still value to be had as he slides up draft boards. But like, don't be shocked if somebody snags him at like 95, especially in best ball, to go with a stack that they might be building around Dak. If somebody drafts CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, who both go before Jalen Tolbert, realize that around 95 to 115, they're probably going to try and grab Dak and or Jalen Tolbert along with them. Julio Jones has moved up to 116. Now, if you watched my video, you can go up there and watch the video that I did when Julio Jones signed with the Buccaneers, and absolutely none of you watched it. It's like the lowest viewed video of the summer for me. Single tear down my cheek on that one. I thought it was a good video, damn it, but y'all didn't watch it because YouTube did not present it to you. Julio Jones was a value where he was. Julio Jones has slid a lot up the board. Like, he was at 175, 180 when I did that video. He is at 116 now. So if you watch that video, you would know that I think that that might be a little bit high. However, things have changed since that video a little bit more. Chris Godwin may not be ready to go full speed in week 1, even though he's practicing in drills with a knee brace. Gage suffered a little bit of an injury during camp. Look, if there are players out in front of Julio Jones where I thought he was going to be a guy who plays some of the time, they're not going to overload him. Now he might be pressed into work the first few weeks of the season. If you're playing in a transactional league, he still might be a value at 116 because playing with Tom Brady in that offense does have its benefits. He is up 23.7 spots in the last 14 days and went up even more before that. Saw a big jump up to like the 150s before that. From like the 175, 180s mark. Julio Jones keeps climbing up boards, and Russell Gage is falling down boards, and both of those things are directly correlated to one another. And our last player on this, Damian Pierce. Good luck getting him at his current ADP. I wrote down right when I started this video, is 120. Exactly. Just made the cut. It's up 13.5 in the last 14 days, most of that in the last 48 hours. Now, I was boots on the ground. I was in Houston this weekend. We went with my family to the Houston Texans game. And I can tell you from just being at the game, he's different from the other running backs that they have on that roster. Every other running back that was out there, no offense to any one of them, but from a fantasy football perspective, they all look like Jags. Every single one of them. That does not mean the Jacksonville Jaguars. They looked like, every one of them just looked like they were just a guy, right? Where Damian Pierce popped. Like, every time he touched the ball, he looked quicker. He hit holes harder. He bounced off tackles. He was actually the number 1 PFF rated running back in the entire league in week 1 of preseason. Now, the argument against, and look, people love being the red team when it comes to fantasy football. Peter Overzet just did a video of best ball guys, and he spent like 40 seconds with everybody on the video saying, aren't you worried about something, right? And everybody's going to come into the replies right now. Aren't you worried about the fact that the Texans are a bad team and they're going to be playing from behind an awful lot? No. Volume. Volume's the only thing that matters. And if Damian Pierce, who should be the Texans' lead running back early in the season, gets all of the volume during the regular season, yes, they're a bad team. But let's talk about what his possible ceiling is, right? Because the argument is there's no ceiling for a running back on a bad team. Let's rewind a couple of seasons when a running back, undrafted free agent, mind you, who nobody was picking in the COVID season in 2020, ran the ball 240 times for 1,070 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground, caught 48 balls on 60 targets for 344 yards and 3 more touchdowns. That's the ceiling. That's what James Robinson did as a rookie. I'm not saying that Damian Pierce is going to hit those numbers. I'm saying that's the possible ceiling for a running back on a really bad team. You remember how bad the Jacksonville Jags were? They were the worst team in the league. They got the number 1 pick the next season because they were the worst team in the league. Yes, you can produce numbers. Volume at running back is the number 1 thing that matters. He is going at pick 120. He is up 13 and a half picks in the last 2 weeks. I think he's going to go much higher. There's a cluster of running backs going between 90 and 110. I think he starts moving ahead of them, and his ADP is going to go up to around 75 to 85 before week 1 gets here. So, yes, he is still a value. I think that you're going to see some players in drafts reach for him well ahead of his posted ADP. So be ready if you want Damian Pierce as your RB3, RB4, that you're going to have to go probably get him ahead of ADP as it's going to keep climbing as the days move on. Thank you guys for being here. Look out for another video. Right there.
He's a legend.